What is up? We are back with another review of WandaVision. This time we're going to go in depth on episode three. I believed it's called Something in Color,
Yeah,
is what
something like
they
that. Yeah.
changed the title to. I don't know why they hid the titles before. It's not like they gave anything away,
Mhm.
but you know, whatever they want to do, it's fine.
Right.
Um, man, just getting that Marvel Studios intro. Like again, I forgot how much I love that intro and the score for it. It really just sets the whole scene for everything. It really
Fandom,
just gets
yeah.
me excited.
The fandom has been deprived of hearing it in a fresh way since for a year now. So yeah, I noticed that too. It's like wow, it's been a bit, my old friend.
Yeah. Um, and let's get right into it. And we're gonna go right into the spoilers. So this is a spoiler review. If you've not seen episode three of WandaVision, go watch it and then come back so we can break everything down for you. But with that, spoilers adieu. We're gonna start off with the big thing, and it's actually going to be a rewind because that's what Wanda seems to be doing to Vision. It's the second time. Last episode, there was that sword guy who with the sword logo on his back who looked like a beekeeper,
Mhm.
and we were like, "Oh, that's weird." Um, but they took it a step further. Vision realizes something weird is happening because any logical person would. The neighbors are acting strange. I can't remember the name of the neighbor who's just cutting through
Oh,
the brick.
it's like
Huh?
Herb or
Yeah,
something.
Herb.
There you
He's cutting through their fence,
go.
and he's like, "Oh, you're cutting through my fence." And he's like, "Oh, sorry," and then just continues to cut through, almost like in a video game with like an NPC.
Yeah.
Um, so that's where I thought that was going, right? And Vision's like, "I think something's wrong here," and Wanda's face just gets concerned and almost surprised that, you're kind of left ambiguous as to what she's thinking, and then it's just like it goes back, and
Mhm.
and I love how they do it because it gives you the moments of like, wait, was that a mistake? And you're like,
YouTube. I actually
oh,
rewinded. I was like, I guess my Wi-Fi's cutting out, but then I like watched. I was like, oh no, it was the video game Batman Arkham Asylum has a similar effect where like the game looks like it's glitching, like it like looks like it breaks, but it's part of the game. And there's so many stories of people like like taking the disc out, like cleaning it, like putting it back in because they thought they thought the game was broken, but it's just part of the. I particularly like that because I generally was like, oh, Disney Plus is just acting out, but it was part of the episode, which I thought was just really clever on their part.
yeah. And I think when the good thing is if you thought it was something was wrong and like with your actual
Mhm.
copy, or not copy but the digital copy, you just go back and you see it again, and then you're like, oh, I get it. So if
Mhm.
you don't get it the first time, you're gonna go back. So it's really smart because after that scene, everyone's gonna understand what's going on. There's gonna be no confusion
Right.
on what's happening because you'll realize it's purposeful. Um, and it's definitely Wanda who's doing this because as we get to later with Geraldine, who's really Monica Rambeau, um, she gets booted from the place,
She gets
whatever they
booted from the
call it.
server.
Yeah, from Westview. Uh, really fascinating. Really fascinating. The last few shots where she goes flying out, rolling out onto the grass. I mean, I can't imagine that felt great after Wanda throwing you all the way out of Westview.
Right.
Um, and then you see the whole SWAT team surrounding her for what reason? I don't know. She obviously works with Sword, and that's definitely Sword who's
Mhm.
outside. Um, but this leaves a ton of interesting questions. But before we get to like the big questions, I'm just going to recap one other part, which
Mhm.
is the neighbors. And Vision is constantly like, what strange thing is going on? And they're like, she doesn't have a home. She's here because, yeah. And then the doctor at the end says, well, I was thinking of going on vacation, but it's very hard to escape here.
Yeah.
um, or it's almost impossible to escape here.
Mhm.
There are all these hints from everyone else that they might be trapped as real people in Wanda's reality.
Mhm.
Like that is a very real possibility. So I want to propose this question to you. Do you think this is all Wanda, A, or B, some of this is Wanda and some of this is someone else?
I think it's I think it's a like a it's a middle ground because what I've been thinking about the Agnes characters, I think Wanda conjured this up on her own, but I think like Agnes maybe either as some sort of scout because I've seen some theories hinting to that, or her herself like she's like a parasite feeding off of Wanda, which is why like that conversation you brought up, like Agnes is in some way she's the one kind of feeding into like the she doesn't belong here. She's like the anomaly, kind of like to say like she's she's like the virus in the system. We have to get her out, and that's exactly what Wanda does. So I do think that to some extent Wanda's it was Wanda's it's Wanda's reality, but someone else is like they're feeding off of it. And like they're trying to maintain like keep her there as well. I think that's what the point of the Agnes characters. And I think that's why the conversation is worded in the way it is, where they're like, Geraldine doesn't belong here. And then what do you know? She gets kicked out later. So I think that to some extent is what's happening. But like I think that's kind of what's happening. And then Sword's outside trying to just puzzle out what the hell's happened, what's going on inside.
Right, and they're clearly trying to get into her reality.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it seems like a bubble, right? It's like your COVID pod, per se.
Mm-hmm.
And then a new person's trying to get into your pod. And when you find out, like, this person doesn't belong here, you're going to kick them right out because you don't want COVID, right? You don't want that disease like you're talking about. Um, and it seems like Sword is trying to figure out what's going on. You talked about Monica Rambeau, you talk about the beekeeper dude. Um, it's really fascinating. And, what's the name of the nosy neighbor again?
Uh, which one? The girl or
Uh, Herb's wife.
the one he was talking to?
Yeah,
The girl that's Agnes. That's
Agnes.
the one that
Sorry,
Wanda
I
been trying
always
to.
forget her name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
um,
worries.
Agnes, who I'll probably refer to as nosy neighbor because I'm bad with character names. I'm
Um,
I'm less and less like sure about what her role is. Before I thought she was going to be the clear antagonist, but each episode I get less sure about that.
mhm.
Because Vision, because she doesn't like. Yes, they're both concerned about Geraldine, but are they concerned, or are they asking if Geraldine's in there because they think Geraldine might be their hope of getting out of this? Because
Right.
that's kind of what they made it sound like. Like she's here to, and it makes it sound like they're like trying to say she's here to help us, like she's here to save us. Um, because they clearly know they're stuck. It seems like people in this town clearly know they're stuck.
Mhm. I was, I suppose so. I don't know. I was like, because I feel like that, like, it could be real people in there. That's what, but I also feel like maybe it's like she's conjured up these stock characters. Like, that's why, like, they're switching decades, but like, it's the same people they're interacting with. I think, like, she conjured up these stock, like, personas that are like, um, that are just kind of set there with the exception of like, of like Agnes and Geraldine. But I don't know. That's interesting to consider. I took their conversation at the end was more pointed at like what's that Twilight Zone episode where they're like she's the outsider like we don't trust her here. What's the episode? Oh, monsters are due on Maple Street. That's the Twilight Zone episode, and it was like a lot of like there's an outsider amongst us type thing.
Right. Let's get into this episode more in general because I think we've kind of talked
Mhm.
about what we can as far as what's happening on the Wanda end. Now we've
Mhm.
talked. I think we've covered what's happening on the Sword end too. To be honest, I don't think there's too much to know other than they're trying to infiltrate this sphere, Westview, which seems to be encompassed in some sort of bubble.
Yeah.
Um, let's go into the episode itself. I thought this was my favorite episode by far. I think, to
Right.
be perfectly honest, they should have given us the first three episodes last week because I would have been much more positive had they given me the first three.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I actually enjoyed this. In retrospect, I actually enjoyed the second episode more. I feel like there was just more like I don't know, more like they gave us a little more on like what's going on, but they also like they seemed to be more like um enjoying the whole like sitcom like company a little more. I don't know. I thought like this one is probably like my second favorite. I just felt like um I don't know. This one felt the I'm this one felt just the whole like I'm trying not to say like oh they're getting gimmicky with it, but like it was on the peripheral of my mind. I thought with this episode maybe just because like I was hoping for just a little more like acceleration, but I did enjoy this. I just feel like I the second episode I was entertained more by. I think in retrospect.
I know for me, I'm a big puns guy, and so when Paul Bettany hit me with the papaya joke, I was crying out loud. Because I'm just like a puns joke person. That's who I've been my whole life. I love those like little stupid jokes, and I was dying. Um, what other one was there? Oh, when the power goes out and the wife of the person she was trying to
Yeah,
impress last episode was like, "Do you think these earrings make me look fat?" And then the lights turn off, and then the husband's just like,
yeah,
"Oh, thank God."
yeah. That was there were a lot more zingers this time around. I was like, I'm vibing. I'm vibing with the like rapid fire approach here now.
Yeah, I really loved that. I thought the whole she's having a baby thing in a day was weird. Like not in a bad way. Like
No,
bigger
yeah, yeah. I got
story,
you.
like what's going on way.
Yeah. I I kind of wish there was like a second episode. Like I would have loved if they had like spaced out like them prepping for the baby and like random like if the whole thing was just like Wanda like having like false like labor contractions or like getting like mood swings because of and like everything's on the fritz just because like I would have been fine with it. In the second half is the actual birth. I would have been I think I would have been okay with that structure, but I didn't mind it the whole like oh, we're like I love the line when Vision's like, well, to be fair, the baby is 9 months early, and it's like, yeah, it's just you got to kind of roll with it at that point.
Hey, maybe that's just how it works with superhero babies.
Hmm.
But it brings up a lot of questions. I mean, Vision's a robot, so is she creating these babies herself? Is someone trying to have her raise children so that they can use them, hoping that they'll have Wanda's powers and they can manipulate that?
Yeah.
Like, are we getting a Darth Vader, like Luke and Leia, who can get Luke and Leia type thing?
Well, I
Um,
know that from what the comics say, and like they kind of more or less explicitly said it with the naming of the children, her children do grow up to be their own like do grow up to be their own heroes. So I wouldn't anticipate them getting like shuffled off the board, like for whatever reason by the time the season ends. I wouldn't be surprised if like we see them at like an accelerated growing age, like throughout that, like they're like 9 years old by like the fifth episode or whatever, and just like they're growing up. I wouldn't be surprised if that like happened along the way.
right. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember a moment. So there are other moments I really thought the water breaking and the the water
Yeah.
sprinklers go off. That was a fun moment. Um gosh, there's one other that I feel like I'm really missing. There's the I can't remember what the name of the animal is. It's
Oh,
when Geraldine's in there.
yeah, I'm gonna
Seagull?
check
It's
it.
not a
Hold on, hold on.
seagull.
I know the stork.
The
The
stork.
stork.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
movie. Yeah, I was like,
Um
movie called.
that whole scene I thought was really fun. It was a little weird though that Geraldine wasn't like obviously should have noticed.
I think
Is she trying to play it cool to
well
like
that's
not
why
mess
like
with Wanda?
at the end like I think well actually well here's what I was thinking like because when she says when Wanda says like oh I had a twin named Pietro something like in Geraldine's like face kind of like clicks like some sort of ball gets rolling and that's why her neck and like her next comment was like yeah he was killed by Ultron right. I think like and like I think she entered one she was swords like scout inside to the into this reality bubble and somehow she like mind wiped like that's why in like the second episode she was like I actually don't know why I'm here because she doesn't know why like that wasn't her like conversating that was her literally saying like I to me at least I was like that's her saying like I have no idea what's going on why I'm here and so name dropping Quicksilver was like a like was like that like a little bit of reality like jolted for her and that's why she follows up with like Ultron and then Wanda freaks out and like kicks her out. That's how I saw the scene. So I think she generally was like unaware of like the stork or the crazy stuff just because like she was she was playing by the rules of like Wanda's reality, and it's not until Quicksilver's mentioned that she like, wait a second, hold on.
Here's the interesting thing with that. We were given trailer footage of that
Mhm.
scene when Wanda's like, "Who are you?" and she's like, "I don't really know who I am." And then you get the quick cut, right? The
Yeah.
little visual cut that normally signifies going back. And I,
Hmm.
I thought it was really interesting that we didn't get that. And I think that was good, frankly, because I thought the way that scene played out of Wanda interrogating her,
Hmm.
Geraldine or Monica Rambeau at that point, she's not Geraldine. She knows who she is now if she didn't before, pretending like, oh, I didn't say anything about Ultron at all. I don't know what you're talking about. It very much seemed like Wanda was like, you're infiltrating my reality. Like, get out
Yeah.
of here.
She I think she knows like swords close, and she's just trying to throw up as many like barriers between her and them as she can to like maintain this bubble. That's the other thing too. I was like, Wanda seems to be freely giving over to like her reality, and it's just like it's these little shocks back to like the outside world that are like disturbing her. I'm definitely intrigued to see how like Elizabeth Olsen like shows that as like things presumably gets more and more like chaotic and like things go haywire as she like fights
Yeah.
to control like everything.
Um, Was there anything else that stood out from you from like just the episode in general? Things you found funny, favorite moments?
Um, I'm trying to like
I know I'm missing one. That's the problem. And I've been trying to
yeah
think about it all episode. There's one moment that I remember loving that I just now, oh, it's the name bit. It's like Billy or Tommy.
yeah
Um, I just love this iteration of Vision. It's
yeah
so clear that, and this is a good point to talk about, that he is a construct of Wanda because Vision is a completely different character in the Avengers movies.
yeah
Um, his personality is so much different than it is here.
yeah. Well, like I said in our first review, like this is the first time I've like really like vibed with them, like their dynamic and them as characters because they've been like underwritten in the MCU in the movies, and so like I think like this episode was really like Paul Bettany's just having a lot of fun. Like you can tell like he's just having fun like with whatever's happening, but also like yeah, you could tell that like there's a clear shift in how he's being depicted, and you could see like Wanda's like keeping a more than like careful eye on him and like all the other little details.
Right. I'm curious if Wanda's going to clamp down on him in the next few episodes because he's been figuring stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, there's that scene in the first trailer where he goes to talk to Agnes, and she's like, "Oh, aren't you dead?" And, no, what is it? What's the exchange in the car? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, it's like,
Like,
your
you're dead.
vision, aren't
He's
you
like,
dead? And then it like it flickers and then she just starts laughing really
yeah.
hard.
I think that's definitely. I feel like that's definitely a strong. What you just said, like she'll be keeping an closer eye on him. I think definitely as he becomes more like aware of like what's happening, like she's gonna be trying to like keep a leash on him more. So, um, that'll be interesting too, since they've been joined at the hip thus far. I'll be intrigued to see how they like pair off and like travel around.
Right. Um yeah, there's just a lot of what's going to happen going forward type questions, and I think
Yeah.
that's great because that's what we love to talk about. That's what we love to think about each day until the next episode drops. I will say about in general about how this season was dropped. I do like the week to week, and I love the
Mhm.
speculation, but this series almost feels like something where you drop like the first 4 or 5 episodes and then you'd go week to week. I know
Yeah,
it's a
it's.
weird release strategy, but I think it might have worked well for this series.
I think it's because like the show as of currently is in no hurry to get anywhere. Like again, to compare it to the Mandalorians, like people are chasing Baby Yoda, and so we have like we have places to go. And here it's not. I'm I'll probably like make up my mind of how I feel about like pacing or whatever like with the end of the season once I see like full picture and be like, oh okay, like this was good, this you could have cut this or like X, Y, and Z. So for right now I'm gonna give them the benefit of a doubt. Just um I know last our last review I was like they can only get away with this like sitcom like writing for like a little more before it gets, like it just becomes like whatever. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's just this is the nature of it. Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, with me, one of my most common critiques from movies and television is pacing. I think that's just the style for me, which I like writing and which I like um, just consuming television.
Mhm.
And kind of 21st century pacing is like super important, and everyone's like pace, like make your movie move as fast as possible. I think that seeped into me, and so I'm a little less patient, I think, than most audience members. But I love this third episode. Like, I think this is a really the first episode of WandaVision, I think, is great.
Mhm.
That's what I'll say. And I really liked episode 2. I wasn't really a fan of episode 1 that much.
Fair enough. Yeah.
um but I just love how Vision's connecting the dots. Vision feels like the audience here, and I love that. Is I think they're doing it in a really good way, and I love the relationship between Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, Wanda and Vision. I think that's great, and I think it's going to make it even more heartbreaking if Vision dies again,
Yeah.
which is a if. Because if his kids become a part of the MCU, who's to say that her construction of Vision can't come back too?
This is true as well. This is true. That'll be interesting to ponder, like if the kids, because like I would be surprised if they like wiped off the board into like whenever. Like these are like they're like from what I understand, like big like Teen Titans type like young heroes. So, like if they survive, they're like manifested into our real, then there's a huge chance that Vision can be as well. And so many elements of Wanda's reality can just pour over. Um, yeah, I think that's definitely going to be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they're probably important because it really seems like they're building to Young Avengers,
Mhm.
um, which I'd be curious how they do. I'm not very familiar with Young Avengers.
Yeah.
I'd love the some sort of thing where we get two Avengers movies where one is some sort of cosmic event that all the big Avengers go do, and then there's this
Mhm.
big Earth-threatening event that you have the Young Avengers tackling. I don't know. I'm not Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige knows what to do way better than me, and he's read the comics. So, but I really do think they're building to a Young Avengers. It really seems like that. So it makes sense for them to stay in the MCU. So, in the world of fake deaths that is the MCU, Vision coming back doesn't seem that unlikely.
But not, I mean, hell, Loki's died how many times, and he man got away with a TV show on his own. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my one thing is though that this series may be thematically Wanda coming to terms with the loss of Vision.
mhm.
But man, would it suck seeing your husband dead 3 times?
Or had to see his brother die 3 times as well. My God,
Yeah. I guess the MCU doesn't shy away from that now that you're saying it. I mean, it's true.
3 times the charm. 3 times the charm.
Three times the charm. And with that, I think there's no better way to wrap up this episode of the WandaVision spoiler review. Third episode, third time's a charm. Um, Let us know what you thought about this episode. What are your theories as to what's going on in the reality of Wanda and what's going on in the outside world? Is there something we forgot to cover that you want to know about? Let us know so we can talk about it next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.